Football for me, it means people. Everyone who's involved for the right reasons. They want to play because they love the game, they want to be involved, and it brings connection between everyone, whether it's standing on the sides, whether it's in the crowd, just watching and not playing.
And with football being for everyone, whether you're a coach, a player, an aspiring player for the future, someone seeking a scholarship, a teacher, a youth worker, a professional, a volunteer, someone seeking to get involved in the game, a volunteer parent, whether they're reflecting on their journey and how they can understand their grassroots team, an aspiring academy coach, an academy coach yourself, no matter what and no matter where you're listening, this podcast is really for you. On the Reflective Coach podcast, there are so many wonderful guests that feature on a podcast, whether this is former professionals, current professionals, and professionals of all backgrounds within the Coaching Insight series that really inspire, understand, support, and are reflective amongst this journey as they share their own insights, experiences, their own journey, their own reflections, strategies, insights, and other stories into the Reflective Coach podcast. Each week features a new guest, and each new guest brings something new to the podcast. I've been so lucky to have so many wonderful guests on, and you can really listen to all the episodes on Spotify, YouTube, and Podcast Addict, with continuous updates on Twitter and LinkedIn. By subscribing, commenting, following, engaging with all the posts amongst social media, you can really keep up to date with all the episodes.
We'll do, like, if we score a goal, we do, like, our VO camera, we'll turn it to the side and we'll do, like, bench vibes. And I'm telling you some of the things that have come, like celebrations, like the dancing, just like the funny things like that, which again is like a culture builder. And it's that whole concept of like everyone has a role for your team and your program to be 100%, to, have the success you want, all this, like every player has to bring their 100%. So if you have, say we have 30 girls on the team and you have players 25 through 30 that they're only bringing 50% every day, well, that doesn't make our program whole. I think every class we have, from our freshman, sophomore, junior, senior, whether they know it or not in that moment, like they're a leader and they are slowly absorbing that culture and slowly absorbing those leadership things, whether they're a vocal leader, a leader by example, whatnot. So I think the way we can kind of keep it going is those people that are absorbing the culture.
How are you? You okay? Good week? Good day?
Yeah, just busy. We had our gear just got dropped off this morning, so it's like everything for preseason is coming about. So it's been crazy, but
definitely, yeah. It seems like you've had a very busy week indeed.
Yes, but I wouldn't change it. I like being busy, so.
Exactly, and there's nothing better than fresh gear, looking for a new season, everything to set a new page off. Exciting times.
Oh yeah, exactly. Yeah, opening that box and seeing all the new stuff, I'm like, man, it's coming. Season's coming. It's been exciting.
So preparing for the new season then, have you set yourself an objective or a team objective for the year ahead? Or is it sort of sustainable goals? How does that sort of look for you and your team?
Yeah, so I mean, our goal is always, postseason and then, go from there. So yeah, we've kind of, once our girls get here, we'll really set those like specific goals for our season as a team. But like the goal always as a coach is that postseason run and, make our conference tournament, make the national tournament. And we did it a few years ago, so we know it's possible. We know with like the group of girls we have, like it can happen. So yeah, that's always your coach goal. We'll see what the girls kind of come up with. We always give them that little freedom. It's their team, so they should have a say in it. So.
And that's good as well because it involves that player and then sort of builds them up in terms of that as well. But preparing for this year ahead, how many new players do you have coming into your program then?
Yeah, so we will have 14 new players, which it's a big number. 2 of those will be transfers from a Division II school and a Division I school, and then 10 freshmen. So it's gonna be a big group. It's gonna be you have to have the balance of being able to integrate those players into the culture and into the program you already have, the standards, and kind of get them on board. But you have to do it quick too, because our first scrimmage comes 4 days after the girls start practice. So it's being able to like quickly integrate them into like what we have here. But I think with like what the group we have and the culture we've created and the system we've created, that should be seamless. Fingers crossed. It should be kind of a seamless transition. Us coaches shouldn't have to really do much. It's more the players, the leaders. They'll handle all that. So.
And it sounds good, and hopefully, they take that player leadership and they take that onus over it as well. But 14 new players coming in, that's a lot to sort of get to know, not only on technical ability, but personal ability as well. But that integration is a lot to sort of include in that. But it's good that it will hopefully seem seamless by the culture that's already ingrained by utilising the players. But with 14 new players coming in, how do you get to know 14 players? Is that more of a sort of 3 to 6 month, or is it try and get to know them before they come on a program? How does that sort of take shape when you got so many?
Yeah, so a lot of the freshmen we've recruited, we've been recruiting since we technically were legally allowed to talk to them per NCAA rules. So we've had some girls that have been committed to our program for almost going on 2 years, which is crazy to think of. Like, it's you've created that relationship and that bond in the recruiting process, but it was so long ago. So it's just kind of staying, once they've verbally committed, staying in touch with them and really building it. But it's just those constant phone calls with them. It's the constant communication. We always update them on our season. We'll send them highlight films, like different things of like what's going on in the program. So then they feel included and like they feel kind of like, oh, I'm already part of that place. But yeah, building those relationships, it takes a lot. Recruiting it's a long process, and it's, for one player, you could invest, a ton of your time, and then that player could just say, hey, I don't want to go to your school. So it's kind of like, I always joke, it's like a relationship. Like you put in the investment and the time, and it's like you have to keep up with that relationship to keep them, interested. And then once they verbally commit, you're like, man, that stress is gone a little bit. It makes it nicer. But yeah, it's just kind of keeping in touch with them, and group chats. We thrive on our group chats with all of our different, like we have 24s committed, have had them committed for months. And so it's kind of just always staying connected with that. So.
And I love that. And I love what you do by including them and then getting in touch with them over the course of the season with those highlights. So that's definitely a first that I've heard, but that sounds so impactful. But just something so little, but something which could work out so great to build those relationships and make a player feel involved, and something that they can also cherish and take away with them, because as they get older and sort of move on from the program, they can always have those sort of clip-ins and highlights. And that's always going to be true to them in that respect as well.
Yeah, so we our bench, we kind of pride ourselves in, our bench is obnoxious. Our girls, they realize like not everyone can play. So if my role is that player that maybe doesn't see a single minute all season, and we can but my role is to cheer on my teammates, to be that support, they take that too hard. They like thrive on that. So it's those players on the bench that then they're like the biggest cheering support group. So like it's become a thing where we'll do, like if we score a goal, we do like our VO camera, we'll turn it to the side and we'll do like bench vibes. And I'm telling you, some of the things that have come, like celebrations, like the dancing, just like the funny things like that, which again is like a culture builder. And it's that whole concept of like everyone has a role, but those are like, I think the best parts of our highlight films. Like we'll put that in, like, okay, here's the goal we scored, here's the bench view. And like multiple times our recruits and different things, or our verbal commits will be like, that bench celebration was amazing. And I'm like, yes, it was. Like, you're right. Like, I mean, we've had girls running around circles, like high-fiving, like people have done the worm, people have like been dancing. Like but for us, it's like, that's our culture. We want to have fun. We want to celebrate the victories, and in games, sometimes that little victory is a goal. And then, so that's what our recruits and stuff like out of those highlights. It's, the goal's cool, but that celebration's even cooler,
I love that, and there's two things within that bench vibes, as you call it, which I really find fascinating. So it's like a bench cam for coaches, but flipping that and taking it on the players, which is really good. So I like that, and that's something which that you can see the relationship in the friendships as well. You can see how players react, their attitude towards things, their personality. So as much as you got those bench vibes from a coaching standard and perspective, that's a great opportunity to sort of address and highlight those things in terms of a coaching and how you take that away. So I really love that. And culture builders as well is a great sort of terminology to have, because you do have those players which are going to take on those leadership roles, and not only leaders but those who can come in and help develop that culture. So what does a bench look like? How do the relationships perceive? And especially when you've got a squad as big as yours, and you might have players who are not having as many minutes, and especially as they're transferring from other schools as well. If they're not getting as many minutes, or that may play out differently over a course of the season, having someone on the bench who can help maintain that culture and that sort of relationship is really important to have off the field as well.
Oh, for sure. And I always say it's like, for your team and your program to be 100%, to, have the success you want, all this, like every player has to bring their 100%. So if you have, say we have 30 girls on the team and you have players 25 through 30 that they're only bringing 50% every day, well, that doesn't make our program whole. And so it's, but within our culture and within kind of what we've created, it's like, how can you make sure everyone knows, like, I have to bring my everything. I have to bring my 100% so that our team can have that success, so our team can thrive. Back in 21, we won our conference championship and we made the NCAA tournament, postseason, all that. But that, looking back, that doesn't happen unless that, those players that never play, the players that never see a minute, if they didn't give 100%, that our success as a team would have never happened. And then, players, that never come off the field, they realize like, hey, like that person that's cheering me on is actually helping me be as good as I can be. And so it's kind of like that checks and balance. Like your lower level has to be amazing so your upper level can thrive, and then your team thrives. And so that's kind of a cool kind of, I feel like, balance that we've created here, and that's created success.
I love that, and it's great that it has created that success within the process as well. And you're taking players within this program and you're creating it, and you talk about an existing culture. So what does that existing culture look like in terms of how that is right now?
Yeah, so I mean, for us, it's, you have to create the trust, and you have to create, that trust between players, the trust between the coaching staff, the trust between our athletic trainers and the medical staff, and that, like I always say, like trust equals your culture. So when we, the head coach and I took over this program, they weren't great, and it wasn't because they didn't have talent, it wasn't because they didn't have that, but I just feel like they didn't trust each other. They didn't trust that. The person next to me was going to do everything they could to be successful. So I think we really, started, like when we got here, we started that culture, that trust culture type thing. And then, with that is like, hey, I trust the person next to me. This person's pretty cool. Like, they're like, maybe I'll hang out with them. And then it's like that off the field culture starts happening. And then it's like, if I had an issue with X, Y, and Z, like, hey, I trust that person. I can go deal with it, and like they can help me. Or hey, the coaches, I can trust them. I'm going to just go to them and deal with the situation on the field, off the field, whatever. So that's kind of what we've created. And I think too, like part of our culture is, well, yes, we want to win. That's the goal. I'm one of the most competitive people. I try to win at the smallest things in just life. And the head coach is the same way, but it's like, yes, we want to win, but we also have to have fun doing it. Like, this is 4 years of your life that, like, I always say the best 4 years was my college years. But it's like, you have to have fun. So when our girls come into our office before training and are goofing around and, there's banter back and forth, that's that fun. We're laughing, we're goofing around. But the second we get on the field, it's like, let's get stuff done. And so that's kind of also part of our culture to, can we have fun? Can we trust each other? And then, hey, things are going to happen that are good. So that's kind of what we've created here. So
I love that, and it's great that you have that culture in what's created as well on and off the field, and it allows those players to have those best years of their lives, especially if they don't become, pro or gain a scholarship elsewhere, or have these further opportunities to go on in within soccer or sport, but that they can look back and go, I actually enjoy being part of Melissa's squad, and I enjoyed that time with the friends, and we still got this relationship, or can I reach out to Melissa and say, hey, how are you doing, and just have a chat with you. And that's what those moments are created for, because sometimes we forget it's, not about the player, about the program, but it's about the players on the program as well. So it's very different to club sport in terms of what you have. In club sport, you could have a renewed squad, so you could have your older players who come through, and then they sort of distribute the culture as such, because they can still be there in 5 or 6 years, and they're the sort of the culture standards. But and then you can bring in new players over a period of time, and that culture exists and maintains. But for you, you have a continuous overturn of players, and it's constantly refreshing, which is good. But how do you maintain that culture, or is it a case of rebuilding it and then sort of rebranding it as these new players come in, while sort of maintaining some standards within that culture that you'd like to maintain?
Yeah, I mean, it is hard because, you have such a turnover. Our current senior class is over 14 girls. So it's like, once they graduate, that's a big chunk of your leadership. That's a big chunk of your team. So it's, I think every class we have, from our freshman, sophomore, junior, senior, whether they know it or not in that moment, like, they're a leader, and they are slowly absorbing that culture and slowly absorbing those leadership things, whether they're a vocal leader, a leader by example, whatnot. So I think the way we can kind of keep it going is those people that are absorbing the culture. So but that also starts with our upperclassmen helping people be able to absorb it. If it's just very, cut and dry, and it's not that, and you're not including people in that building of it, of the culture, then it's never going to carry on. So I think that's something we've kind of, I've been here 4 seasons. That includes a COVID season, going on 4. And, I've seen players that when I first got here really weren't leaders. They were quiet. They stayed off to the side. They did their own thing. They were great teammates, but they didn't really get involved in stuff. And now those are some of our best leaders, 3 years later, which is crazy. But then that shows you kind of that absorption. They were waiting their turn in a sense. And then they were ready to do it when it was their time. And that's kind of how you keep it going, I guess, with the turnover in college sports. It's now with the transfer portal and all that, people can leave after 2 years. You can get transfers coming in. It's a whole crazy world. But yeah, you're going to have that turnover.
Absolutely, yeah. That turnover has that impact on the program as well, and sometimes it can be detrimental. Sometimes it can renew a program and be like, right, this program was losing a bit of life here, but we got some new players coming in, and then it sort of revives, and it's refreshing in that way as well. So it's exciting, but it's also a lot going on, which is hard to maintain as well. But it's sort of good scope as a coach to be involved in that and have players coming through. But as these players come through, and then you're sort of looking at these players, and that culture can be maintained, but the identity can change over a period of time as well, because whilst we look at personalities, technical ability comes into play in the aspect of the players coming through. So the identity could change, because suddenly when you might be attacking next year, you might not have the players coming through to be attacking, so you might be very defensive, and then that might change over a period of time. So is it important, whilst you have a sort of culture, is it sort of important to maintain that identity in terms of how you want to be seen, whether that might be an attacking sort of team or establishment, or is it okay to change that identity? And is that something that you take on board and are flexible with?
Yeah, I mean, you have to be flexible. That's the reality is, with the changing of, new classes coming in, all that, your personnel changes. So to our core, the head coach and I, we've been together coaching. Our philosophy is, we're going to be a hardworking team. We're going to outwork you. We're going to be fit, in order to do that. And then, but it's also what is in front of us? What can we do with what we have? So it's we had a player come in 2 years ago, an amazing central player. So we almost kind of built around her, because it's if she's gonna, she's quality for us. We have a forward from Spain who, her first or her second year here was player of the year in our conference. Last year struggled a bit. So it's kind of you have to tweak based on the year and based on how a player is and different things. For me, I mean, I played goalkeeper when I was in college. So for me, I pride myself on defense shutouts. And so I will say the most consistent thing for our program since we've been here has been, defense, defensive wise in our shutouts. We led the nation in 2021 or 2021, sorry. in shutouts. We have 14 shutouts on the season, which is in Division II, it is pretty uncommon. It's not a crazy, thing that everyone does. And, our defense last year was the last Division II women's program to give up a goal, which is, so that for us, it's like that pride. But again, we tweak different things. Like this year, we're going to look into playing like a 3-back system, which is something like we've never really done as a coaching staff, but we're like, hey, we have the personnel to do things on the attack. Let's see if we can keep our defense consistent. So yeah, it's always that ever changing thing. If you're stuck in your ways, it's going to be tough as a coach, especially nowadays. So.
And it's a great learning curve as well, because as you say, you never really addressed that 3-5-2. So by doing so, you get to learn within the process as well, which is really exciting, because then you get to deliver and develop those tactical strands and how it works with players. And you get to take that away with you over a period of time as well as you evolved on your coaching journey. But whilst you're sort of there and, you got players coming through, which is refreshing and exciting, and it's great to, continue to learn, coach and teach these players. Is there a point of view where you'd like to be in a club position, for example, where you'd like to sort of be settled and have a cohort of players over a period of time and then just sort of build around that? Or is it always looking at refreshing and rebuilding and looking at what you have?
Yeah, I think like the best part of like coaching at the college level is every year is different. To me, that's like entertaining. Like I don't want to, I coach because I don't want to sit at a desk and do a 9-to-5 job. I don't want to do that. That's not me as a person. I am a go. If things are changing, I want to adapt to them. So that's kind of the perks of like college coaching, is like you're always changing. You're always like, every year is different. We went from a year where we won and we were super successful. We won 8 straight in our conference to start. And then we go the next year and we tied, like last year, we tied 8 games. So like you take those 2 back-to-back years were completely different. In terms of just like on the field, the mentality, having to adjust and do different things as a coach, trying to keep your culture and the girls together while, you weren't winning games. So I like the ever changing things. I don't think I would change. I don't think I'd want to go to a setting where everything is, you know what you're getting, year in, year out, it's going to be kind of the same thing. To me, I'm like, that's like a 9-to-5 job in my head. I don't want to do that. So.
And it's good that you sort of have that purpose and that understanding of where you want to be and what you don't want to do. So you can continue to enjoy it and where you want to go in coaching as well. Because the moment that you feel that it is work, then it sort of takes out that love and ambition, the enjoyment and everything else that comes with it. And then it becomes mundane, and then you're not putting the energy into those levels. And I've sort of been there as well. And I understand it. So it's good that you're in that position where you go, right, do I actually want to move into this area, even though it is within coaching, but is it going to take away from what actually is at the heart of what I want to do? So it's good that you have that as well. But how big is your squad? So you've got 14 new players coming in, but what's the total that you're going to have?
So we'll have 34 in our program, which is a lot. I always joke, it's like it's hard to keep 34 females happy. I'm a female. I know how it is. It's hard. Again, that goes back to like culture and how your program is kind of created. So it doesn't make it. It's not impossible. But it's tough. 34 is a lot. We kind of teeter right around that 30 to 35 is what we've had since we got here. Nowadays in the college setting, especially like a small D2 school, like the reality is enrollment is a thing that matters to these smaller colleges and universities. So it's like we have a set roster number we need. But the coach and I also are like, if a player is going to really help our program, we're not going to say, no, we already have our set number, we don't want you. So that's kind of also part of it. It's all, it's like the business side of sports, especially nowadays with just like financial stuff. But yeah, 34, that's a big number. It'll be interesting.
Massive squad, and definitely a lot within that, how you sort of look and manage that and coordinate that over a time of the year. And when it's good that you also have that flexibility whereby if you feel that a player's going to have value, you're going to be like, yeah, let's get you in and be part of this. But for the existing squad and say players who might be lacking minutes and might be questioning where they're at, when you bring that player in and you sort of recruit them and be part of that program, how does that sort of go down within your squad then when you're bringing another player in, say, considering you've got a group who might be struggling for minutes?
Yeah, I mean, you always have that human part of that player. Yeah, you have the business side, the soccer side, but the human part. Like we had a girl come to us in the beginning of our spring semester, and she's like, for me, soccer is my happiness. It brings me joy. Like, and I know if I stay here, I probably won't play. The people in front of me are better. They're good. Like she didn't question our coaching anything like that. She's like, I just know, like, I want to play. And so, and for us, it was like, okay, so what do you want to do? And she's like, I think I want to transfer. That was our first transfer in a long time in this program's history. Like we don't, our retention rate is very high, so it's hard. And this girl is a great person. She was a good culture kid. She was just a good human being, a good student, which is a big thing too. And so we looked at her and we said, we don't want you to leave, but we understand and we'll help you find a new place. So it's those kind of kids that, it's tough. It's part of the business side of the sport. Is like, my job is only secure if we win games, technically. And so that human part, you kind of sometimes have to stick off to the side and say, yeah, I may love this player, and she's the ultimate student athlete, but this player is better than her. So I have, you have to play the player that's going to help you win games sometimes. So it's tough. That's that, my first year here, we had to bench a goalkeeper just because she was struggling a bit, and this other goalkeeper was just kind of rising. And, we brought her in and we said, hey, like, you're not going to play the next game. And she broke down in tears. She's one of your favorite kids. And she's like, oh, that game was going to be the first time my grandpa was going to see me play. So then that hurts your heart even more. And it's like, but it's like the business side of it, which is tough. And recruiting, when we bring a kid in, we never promise playing time. That's not how we roll. You could be an All-American in high school. You could be an All-American club player. You could be player of the year, yada, yada. But I'm not going to promise you playing time, because what if you come here and do nothing? You don't work. You're not a good culture kid. I can't put you on the field. And so that's kind of our philosophy, is you have every opportunity to earn that playing time. You have every opportunity to show that you should be on the field. But you have to earn it. That's kind of how that helps also take a little bit of that, like, pulling at your heartstring type thing, those different situations. It makes it a little easier, because if that player's not working hard, then there's my answer. So, I mean, my philosophy is you don't do anything halfway. You do it with 100% effort. So that's a big one for me, for sure.
And that's great to hear that insight in terms of effort and how that's expected, but also how you recruit players and how those minutes sort of look across the squad. The contributions towards the team, looking at how a player can make a team better. And when it comes down to the business end, you have to be relentless and sort of have that conviction and making that decision within it. And it's tough and it's hard, but you have to look at the team in the whole. And when it comes down to it, is there any regulations, or is there any sort of position whereby you're backed up? So if a player only had, say, a grand total of 179 minutes over the course of your program, that's a very low number considering the amount of games in contrast. But would there be any, are you sort of backed up then to go, yeah, that's completely fine that they only had 179 minutes? I'm just thinking here in the UK, if we were to give someone that sort of time, there would be a lot of uproar from a parent. And where we sort of break down the peer pressure of the parents over here, and we start having minutes. So I worked on a program once, and I had a very good assistant coach, and he was all about equal minutes. And for the program we had, it worked. But we then became very dedicated to minutes, so we were constantly clock watching, we were programming in changes, and then suddenly we were coming into games on the forthcoming weekend. He's like, I've planned the changes in, I've planned that. So then this tactical sort of plan which I had and sort of framework, I was like, what's the point in having it? Because we're not adjusting the game depending on the tactical outcomes of the team, because we're planning in the time and the minutes to get the players on because of the equal minutes program. So it became very difficult for us.
Yes, I think what we do kind of on the front end is we don't guarantee that time. We say, you could come to our program and not play a single minute in 4 years. Are you okay if that were to happen? And that's kind of the question you kind of phrase to a kid, is like, you'll have every opportunity to play, but if you don't play a minute, will you be happy here? Is it the right fit then? Because it's, we've had players come in and it's like almost every week they're like, why am I not playing? What can I do better? And you tell them, and we're very, as a coaching staff, we're very honest, we're not going to sugarcoat things. There's no point in that. It doesn't help anyone. And so we tell them, hey, do this, and this, this gives you a better chance. But again, nothing's guaranteed. But we've also had, we had a lot of injuries last year, and it was like that player that, from the start, you're probably like, hey, is not really going to maybe play a lot this season. They had to step up. They had to go play. And then, but they were ready for that moment because they knew, okay, I know what I need to do. I know how I need to compete. So it does create, there are kids that have come through this program that probably really they probably have only played maybe in 2 or 3 games. We have girls that maybe their only game they really ever get time in is their senior day game. And it could be 10 minutes of that game. So it's hard, but again, that all goes back to the culture thing. If you have, a kid that's bought into it, and you do the work on the front end so that it's not issues when they get here, like through the recruiting process, then it kind of makes it all works out in the end. So it's interesting because you're going to have, we've had parents call our office phone upset about playing time, and then their daughter have to be like, Dad, stop. Like, I'm okay with what I'm doing. I'm working hard. Let me do it. That's happened. And it happens at the college level too. So parents are everywhere. They're going to have a say in everything they think. So.
Yes, always. They're not going anywhere, and sometimes that's the hard dynamic for us to sort of manage and be part of. But it's part and parcel of the sports world. It's part and parcel of coaching, unfortunately, at times. But when it comes down to it, we have to be open and honest with these players. We have to be open and honest with them. And I love the way that you pose that question as well, because a player finding the right fit for them and understanding what the dynamics and how that will look in terms of over the next 4 years, and they might not play a minute, certainly has that decision making process whereby they have to be comfortable in where they're going and what they're completely understanding. So you might be trying to sell the best version of yourselves, and they're trying to sell the best version of themselves as well, and that's what recruitment truly is. But if you're open and honest, and you're the only program which is going to a recruitment event and listing out everything, going, right, these are the cons as well, and you might be the only institution doing that, you're probably the best institution there, because these players are going to have the full picture. And then you might lose some good players, but realistically, if you've got then a committed squad and players coming in, then they're going to buy into what you're doing, and they're going to fully understand what the impacts and opportunities of the program is going to be.
Yeah, it all comes back to the trust thing. If you're lying to kids, or you're sugarcoating and making these things all look like the best thing in the world, then when they realize it's not that way, their trust is gone. So then you screwed up your whole culture, your whole, like, everything you can do. You have to be able to kind of build that trust, and that's how you slowly do it, is just being honest and truthful. So that's kind of what we always say, the coaches don't want to be your best friend. We don't want you, like, if we're the enemy, awesome. Because that means then you as a collective team have, like, come together, like, make us the enemy, don't make each other the enemy. It's not the player playing ahead of you that's the bad guy. It's the coaches, because we made that decision. We decided not to play you. The starter did not decide that. So that's kind of, we try to tell our girls, like, the coaches, let us be the bad guys. We can take it. We're mature enough. We've done this job. This is why we're here. Like, let us be the bad guy. Players, love each other. Like, be a group. So
I love that.
I'm cool being the bad guy. I can handle it. So,
well, if I ever needed the bad guy, I know who to recruit and who's going to be a fantastic assistant coach and who to field the phone calls to. That would be brilliant. But in terms of that group and the way that comes across, that's great as well. And you're recruiting these players, and you're having these players coming in, and they're forming a squad. And they may be lacking on minutes over the course of the season. And in doing so, they're sort of questioning why. You saw the program, they've come on board, they've understood the why they're coming onto the program, and why they want to make that decision. But then, 3-4 months down the line, they might be asking, why am I really here? Why am I in this position? And there's a lot of questioning which comes into that. So when it comes down to why on their purpose, and questioning why they're part of the program and where they're at in that period of time, and they've obviously got an action plan in place and opportunities to support them, how do you sort of have that discussion of going, you're here because of this, you're here because of that, you are lacking minutes, but this is the real element of why? How do you pose that conversation with them?
Yeah, we have an open door policy. Our players could come in. we're not there all the time. Like, I have a life too, but like, they can come in at any moment and they can sit and have that hard conversation. And I think that's what the trust we've created is. Like, our office isn't like a principal's office. It shouldn't be a place where you get scared, or a place where it's, you're gonna, like, hey, if I go in there, I'm gonna cry. Like, that shouldn't be how it is, and so having those hard conversations, I mean, with that open door policy, those girls can come in and again, if we don't believe that they have what it takes to play this season or play this moment, we tell them that. Because again, it doesn't help us if we don't tell them the truth. And so we've had some hard conversations looking at a girl and saying, you know what, like, I know every part of your being wants to play, but reality is it's probably not going to happen. Then there's tears. I have to hand them a tissue. It's like it's a whole thing, but it's, I think because we've created the trust, like, we're able to have that hard, tough, like, no one wants to hear it conversation. And our thing too is, like, if you're not happy here, you're not happy at our school, we're not going to tie you up and force you to stay here. Like, if you want to leave, that's your choice. We want you in our program. We recruited you to be in our program. There's a reason you're here. But if you don't want to be here, you're not happy here, don't stay. And we tell that to the girls. We've had girls, quit soccer altogether and leave. We've had girls quit soccer, stay at the school and be students. Because in the end, happiness is what is actually important. If you don't enjoy your life and you're miserable every day, that's not a life. That's not worth, like, being, living and being happy. And, you have to have that. Because reality is, girls are not going to remember win number 10, 11, 12, 13 this season. They're going to remember on the bus, we were acting like fools and we were doing a dance party in a hotel room, or we were playing card games in the lobby. Like, that's what they're going to remember. They're going to remember before, games in the locker room being an absolute goofball. Like, that's what they're going to remember. It's the memories they're going to remember. The wins, loss, all that, cool. Like, yeah, we won a championship. That you're going to remember that one. You got a ring to prove it. But all those other wins leading up to that, you're probably not going to remember in 10, 15 years. And so, like, if you're happy, you've created your memories. There you go. That's you've had a great 4 years of college.
And that's it. And that's something which I consider as well, because I think of some of the players that I played with back when we were younger kids as well. And I'm like, do you actually remember having those games with all the wins? And I can't even recall all the games that I played as a kid, or who against, or what the outcomes were. And I'm like, did that really matter? But what I can recall is the relationships that I had, the turnover of coaches, the greatest year that I had when one coach stepped up and came in, how I developed as a player, and then how sad I was when the program fell away and ended up disintegrating because everyone else decided to go in other pathways. But that's what I sort of remember, rather than the results-driven basis or what came of it. And that's what the important thing is. And it's good that players can sort of address that and understand why, and realise that, you know what, I'm not going to be tied up and stay here, but I can move on. I'm not, having to commit for the next 5 years or 4 years, or have to stay here indefinitely. And it's just a nice thing that Sakichi Toyoda, the founder of Toyota, actually formed in the 1930s. He actually created the basis of asking the question why. And that asking the question of why was a relationship whereby it would try and understand the root cause of the issues which were in front of them. So by these players asking that why, they do it over say 5 times. So why am I here playing this program? Why am I part of this team? Why did I select this college? Why am I here in this period of time? And why am I not playing? Allows them to form a complete basis of pictures, to allow them to critically think and analyze where they're at, to then pose you the position that they're in, which then realistically you could go, right, here's an action plan, this is what we can do, instead of them getting in a little cycle and going, right, this is the end of the world, I'll quit the program when I'm off.
Exactly. And then to the flip of that is, like, as a coach, why do I coach? Why am I here? All the whys that I can ask myself, because reality is, and I've experienced this firsthand, is like a coach has so much impact on soccer or whatever sport you're coaching, but also impact on your life. So, it's like for me as a coach, and this is something I do often, is like, why do I do this job? Well, for me, it's like I want to impact positively players because I've had coaches that have negatively impacted me. And so it's like, it's that flip of like, yeah, the players ask why, but like, I also have to ask why. So then like, we can bring together, like, this is why we're here. This is why we're doing this. Cause like coaches have such an impact. Like you were just saying, it's like a coach coming in has such an impact on you as a person, as a program. Like you're remembering that. Well, it's the same, the negative way as well. Yeah, and that's the thing. Like before the season starts, like, so, in the last couple of weeks, it's like, you look at yourself and you say, okay, why am I doing this job? Am I happy doing this job? Like, and then like, if you can say yes, and you can be happy and this doesn't feel like work, then that's like the best job ever. Like I always say, it's like, if what you're doing doesn't feel like work, then that is, you're doing the right thing. So. And people can feel that way about a 9-to-5 job too. If they're happy doing that work, then that's on them. Like for me, 9-to-5 is absolutely not my happiness. Being on a soccer field and being in an office and hanging out with girls, that's what I want to do. I want to impact people. That's my why.
I love that, and I was going to pose you that question, but you've answered it in terms of where you're at and where you're going with it as well, and how that carries on, not only for the short term, but the long term as well. And then naturally, when you're retired or moved on or maybe not involved in soccer, you can look back and go, do you know what, I actually see this player doing that, I see them doing that, and they can again contact you and go, do you know what, I'm doing this, I'm doing that. And then realistically, you've answered the why. So you've had a purposeful life, and you've been able to enjoy coaching, because as much as being the bad guy comes into play as well, sometimes we see the downfalls of coaching because it is hard and we have to make these cutthroat decisions. And sometimes we get seen to be the bad person, and in doing so, then comes, a lot of criticism, accountability, and a frenzy of other things that comes around with that. And then we start the question, why am I doing this when all I'm doing is seemingly to make other people unhappy? I've got to deal with, X, Y, and Z, and I've got this on, and I've got that, and we're traveling. And then sometimes it becomes sluggish in terms of where coaching's at. But if you can do that why and then deliver it and then look back and go, do you know what, this was the actual why, and all this that was realistically there doesn't matter anymore in my life, but I can see these, players and individuals moving on and having lives, then you've had a great coaching career.
Yeah, oh, for sure. I mean, so I also, on top of being an assistant coach at a high school here in town, very tiny, they were awful before I took over. Not saying I did the work to get them there, but they needed someone to care. And so it's, I had a great first season with them, went really far in our postseason. And, I always, during the season, it was stressful. I was doing both jobs, and I would be like, why am I doing this? Like, why am I doing this to myself? And then it's like, come that May, and, they're getting medals put around their neck because we got third place in the state. That I look at it and I was like, that's my why. Or it's, all the stress of scheduling food and buses and, just travel for our college team. And then when you win a championship and you're watching them literally like doing like snow angel things on the turf and, just like jumping on each other's backs, then I'm like, that's my why. And so it's that reflective point because like, yes, like you said, like things pile up. It becomes stressful. It almost feels like you're like going through the motions day after day, but then it's like when the good moments happen or when a player texts you and is like, hey, I just did this, like, hey, I just passed this test, that's your why. You're doing it like the things you do, the hard stuff, those moments come. And it's kind of, it's cool to see it. And sometimes you have these blinders on and it's hard to see the bigger picture. But when you do see it, it's a pretty cool feeling. And then it's like, man, let's keep going. Let's keep doing it.
And that's amazing. And when you create that feeling, you're creating more buy-in from the players naturally as well. And they're enjoying it, and they're going to be committed even more to the program and then take that program forward. And as you say, it wasn't all down to you because of what you've been able to initiate, allowed everyone else to come on board like you do with this program now. And it essentially creates what's called then the commitment model because they're going to buy in and they're going to have a lot more to contribute in terms of how that looks and where it's going. So it's great that you've laid those foundations as well. And it's great that we have certain types of players and having different types of players players and asking why can really allow and understand where their motives are at and what they're doing. Because Sir Alex Ferguson, who told the story of free builders, so he asked the question of free builders. Number one, builder, why are you doing this? So number one, the builder said, laying bricks. The second builder said, I'm here to earn my £10 an hour. The third builder said, I'm here to build a cathedral, this magnificent building which I can't wait to tell people about or my kids about in the future. So just with these three different answers of why, you understand the different personalities within your group and where that's going to go. And therefore you can identify groups of players. So those who are going to create that committed culture and where it's going, those who might not be as committed and might be forming what might be called the bureaucracy group. And then you might have other groups within that and the way that looks. But understanding where your players are at and what their motives are is a really important way to gauge the emotions, the reactions, and then, as you say, when you have those bench vibes, who is actually vibing on the bench and those who actually might have a personal issue, then you can really identify. So, coaching's interesting, coaching's great, it's fantastic why we do it, why you're doing it, and that's coaching for you.
Yeah, coaching is dynamic. That's the best word you can say. Coaching is great. It's, I said earlier, it's like to have 34 girls, they're all different. And it's like figuring out, again, like their why, figuring out their personalities. I can joke with one player and be goofy with them, but the next player, I probably couldn't say that same thing to. And then the third player, I have to say it a whole different way. I could yell at player one, player two would cry if I yell, but player three is like, yeah, yell at me, I need it. It's dynamic. It is dynamic. And then you add so many other factors. I mean, these girls are going to school for, a good chunk of the day, and then it's like, yep, let's have training. And then it's like, they can be stressed out about the project or exam they have. So then you have to that has to factor into also how you handle it, and how you coach them and how you do different things. So I feel like also the why changes a lot too, with college students. Because day one of preseason, their why could be one thing, but then 2 months in, it could be something different. Dynamic, very dynamic.
Absolutely. And when it comes down to, say, this recruitment of players or looking at the players that you're going to bring into a program, so you might be at a showcase event or a recruitment event. You've got a criteria whereby determines what kind of players you're going to have and what the program's going to look like. So you might have identified them in groups or look at groups where you might pinch players in, and then look at how you recruit from there to fill your squad quota. So you might have what might be called star players. So these are, real elite quality. They hit all the boxes. And then you sort of might have gold, silver and bronze. And now they might determine across technical ability in terms of that. And then you might have a different sort of criteria for personality and understanding that. And then that might give you a quantified outcome in terms of that comparison of where then you find those gold, star, silver and bronze. And once you do so, and once you sort of have these sort of players, would you sort of go, right, we want 12 star players, we want 3 bronze, we want 2 silvers, just to create that overall dynamic? Or is it going, right, we're only going to look at the star and the gold players, for example? How does that sort of look when you look at those metrics for players that you recruit?
Yeah, I mean, obviously we all want the star players. That makes our team amazing, right? But that is how recruiting is. It's, I need to fill X, Y, and Z positions. So then I have to kind of, when we go to an event, these are the players I want. These are the players that will impact our program. These are the players that they'd be good, but is there someone better? And so it's interesting how you have to do that. Because you could email 10 girls and get 2 to respond, and then 1 to on campus, and then that person's going to commit somewhere else. So then you've done all this work, and then it's not nothing, but it's all this work and it didn't pan out. So yeah, it's kind of identifying what we need, and again, you always need kind of all those levels too to make a team complete. Because if I have all stars, it's probably not going to be a great culture. If I have a good mix, then maybe the culture's gonna be great. Philosophy that the head coach and I have had is, if you recruit good kids on the front end, if we do our homework and we contact their coaches for our high school club, they're good academically, You can, we bring them into the office and they're good people, and then they go hang out with our team and our team loves them. And we do all that work on the front end. On the back end, life is good. Life is easy. You don't have issues with those kids. So that's kind of our philosophy. Do the hard work at the beginning and on the front end to reap that reward on the back end. But yeah, you can't have a team of all stars. It won't work. It would be great because you could win a lot of games. Culture-wise, it'd be a tough one. You'd have a lot of butting heads because, especially with females, like competitiveness and creating that competitiveness is sometimes hard because a girl doesn't want to, go 100% and maybe take out their roommate at practice. Well, then that might carry over to when they get back to their room, and then their roommate hates them, and then there's all this drama, and so it's kind of you have to kind of teeter on. Can we find girls that they want to compete, but they know to leave that on the field? So it's that front end work that we do. So you definitely have to do a lot of work in that recruiting process. That's the big one.
And I think it's great because we've sort of looked at culture and standards, how you form that, what identity, but forming groups in terms of people to create a team of success through a recruitment process. So naturally the conversation has delved from just initiation of one question into sort of a podcast episode and where we're at. And, it's creating a balance within the team because in the back of my head, I think of those who could be listening, those who sort of got groups in the question where they're at and why, those who might be starting out on those coaching journey, those who might be getting back into it. And then when you sort of have groups of players and teams where you're at, you have to have that balance of where you got those star players, because also you need to have that high quality in performance. But you also need players to fit in to create that program and that dynamic to develop those relationships amongst the team. And as one Real Madrid manager put it, when they had the Galacticos recruitment at Real Madrid, when you've got all these start players, what he said was everyone wanted to be the maitre d', but no one wanted to wash the plates. And when you've sort of got that, it means that everyone wants to be the star player, but no one actually wants to put the effort in, or they're not as committed off the field. So they might not come to the team dinner, or they might not come to the team event, and therefore then off the field they don't have that commitment. So that commitment model then flips itself on its head, and then you've got more issues to identify and address rather than having an opportunity to really work with your squad and then implement what your philosophy is and how that looks, and then actually taking the players forward, because you're spending more time firefighting than you are trying to excel the squad and take it forward.
100%. I mean, it's it's that whole concept of everyone has to know their role. So you can't have all those stars. You have to have people that kind of almost want to buy into every role, that then creates your 100%, which we talked about. It's like, the reality is you can't have 34 girls playing at one time. So, right now we'll have 4 goalkeepers in our program. Guess what? One of them is the only one that's going to, probably play. So it's like, those 3, and I think goalkeepers are the best to kind of talk about that in terms of they know their role. They know they're probably not going to play a lot, especially with the goalkeeper we have who's very good. So it's kind of they've bought into those roles and they realize, okay, I have to be that number 1 cheerleader on the bench, that number 1 supporter. Because you can't play everyone at one time. It just doesn't work. So it's kind of that concept of you have to have people that have bought into every level of role that you have on a team, and then that creates your 100%, and then you can have success from there.
I love that, and I think building that success and creating that 100% is really important as well when it comes into it. And on the back of that, obviously having 34 players, would you think there's an opportunity then for, say, the American game to go into, say, your elite squad and then development squad, so whereby then you'd have a lot more players gaining minutes, and then you'd be able to sort of supplement 2 squads, give leadership more to assistant coaches, and then you're sort of looking at a whole a holistic program whereby your development coaches, you've got a development program, you've got an elite squad, you're increasing minutes, or are you more defined to the way you are and you're happy where it's going?
Yeah, I mean, that question's tough. I coached at NAI level, which the goal was for us to have a second level team. But then it comes into play as I don't want to be told you're on the second team, because it's just as a female especially, and that comes into you have to try to make them happy, is they don't want to be oh, I'm a second team player, that it's a pride thing. So for me, yes, it would give more playing time, but then I also think that's going to create a weird dynamic, and it's going to be, tough of like those kids that are second team players. They know that, then it's like, I'm not going to try as hard because I'm never going to be on the first team. So it's kind of that weird dynamic. It just, for me, it's tough to have that concept with like female athletes. I feel like a guy would love it. Hey, I get to play. Like that's how they see it. Where females are like, oh, I'm on the second team, and so for me, like I don't know. It's a very interesting topic. I mean, we've been approached here to try to do a second team, and we're like, yeah, we're good. We don't want to do it. But there are programs in our conference, teams we play against, that have second teams. I think it's a little more common at like the NAI level, maybe the D3 level, not as common at that D1, D2 level. I don't know. For me, it's already hard to keep girls happy. I would say avoid it, but again, it is that more opportunity to play, more opportunity maybe for assistance. I like that middle. I'm on that fence. I don't know about it.
So would you say that sort of model is more fitted to like a club program rather than high school / college, university?
Yeah, 100%. It definitely is a more of a club model. Even high school here in the US, they have that. They call them like a varsity JV team. So like a team 1, team 2. The high school I coach at, I don't have enough players to do that, but there's high schools here in town that have that. And then again, it's like, I don't know. It's a weird dynamic. It definitely, I don't feel like it's suited for like college, university level, just because, player 1 and player 34 could be they're doing the same amount of work. Player 1 may just have more skill, but then, but 34 is doing just as much work. What says that person, it's like a weird, I don't know. It's a weird concept. Again, I don't know what I would, if I was a player, I wouldn't want to be that second team player. But maybe there's that more motivation to work harder to be on the first team. I don't know. It's like it's kind of like a checks and balance. I don't know. I think if I was that player that was right at the cutoff to be on team 2, man, that would motivate me like crazy. But I don't know if this current generation has that kick of motivation from things like that. So I don't know.
Yeah. Definitely interesting.
That's a hard question. I have opinions on both sides, so it's interesting.
Definitely interesting, especially that scope as well. But when it comes down to, say, training, then you've got a squad of 34. Even if you're doing an 11v11 game, you're working on shape and you're doing your framework, that's only 22 players which are included. So then 12 players are sort of, you could split them as 6 bench and a 6 bench and have that available. But that could be sort of hard to manage within itself, 34 players in that rotation. You might have some injuries, you might have some players unavailable for whatever reason. But how do you typically structure your delivery and training over a season? So, for example, would you have, say, 24 players training and have a player each on the bench? So if you want to do a 11v11, or if you're an assistant coach, then could take 2 groups of 12, and then the other 12 might do a gym session. How does training look for you over a course of the season then?
Yeah, injuries are always going to happen, right? So, to start our preseason, we already have 4 girls that won't be able to fully train. So right there, we've cut down, we're at 30 now. But it is, it is interesting. So a lot of times what we do is if we do 11s, then we have subs. And then those subs kind of get thrown in. We keep a healthy rotation. Like with 4 goalkeepers, you're almost having to like sub them in. Like they're constantly being subbed in when you're playing 11s at practice and you're trying to do formation stuff. Because you also, those players that are your subs, you need them to also know this formation too, and to play it and to physically be doing it. So for us, that's kind of where, the big number creates a little bit of issues, but we're lucky enough here. It's like we have our head coach, me as the assistant, and then we have a graduate assistant coach that splits time between our men's and women's program. A fellow English guy like yourself. So it's nice. Like I can take my goalkeepers and I can do a session. the head coach will take a group and the graduate assistant will take a group doing the same exact thing, but then it's like more reps for the players. So then that allows those big numbers to kind of get more reps. It again, large number, the big roster sizes are tough, but again, it's almost every program here, minus your big Division I schools, they have big rosters.
And I think that's important as well within itself. So you might split those groups into three, and you might be delivering the same session because you want the outcomes to be the same, but you're increasing the reps rather than going, right, we've got 30 players in front of us, and you all have to do this session. So suddenly we're going to go in 11v11 game identity model. Then we're going to rotate all these players on and off. So realistically, splitting up into three and then coming back together to do that 11v11 game, for example, is actually going to work well because then you're transitioning back, and then you get to group players whereby you might go, right, these are the real elite players. These might be the players who are then say performing really well, then these are players not performing well, and you can address this. And then there's other ways you could mix that up with all the weeks, so then you could mold players in, and that's where coaching comes in, and it's so fun and interesting. But then again, it's great because then you get to lead on groups and how that takes place as well. And over the course of the season, then does your head coach delegate to you to become like or to lead on sessions, so whereby you might lead consistently on a load of sessions, or are you very much follow what he says and then contribute as an assistant? How does that sort of dynamic work for you on the field?
Yeah, so I mean, my specialty, I play goalkeeper. That's kind of my bread and butter. I would like to say I know what I'm talking about way more with that than other things, just because I experienced it. So typically, I'm really with the goalkeepers, but the dynamic we have as a coaching staff is, hey, I need you to run and do this type of thing. So taking a group and doing, whatever. Every day before our training, we sit and we go over practice, what we're doing, what is expected of each coach to help with. So the second I'm done with goalkeeper stuff, it may be, hey, I need you to take this group and I need you to go do X, Y, and Z. So I've worked with the head coach. We're going on 7-8 seasons together at different schools. But so like we have a good dynamic to kind of know, hey, this, that, I can do this, you can do that. And then just integrating it and going that route. But again, it's keeping everyone going at practice. 3 people shouldn't be just standing around because what's the point? It doesn't help anyone. When 11v11s happen, and we have those big teams, it's like, hey, we can put 1, 2, and 3 players together. Maybe that dynamic's going to make us have more success going forward. Or let's try this. And so it's all dynamic. It's all, it's kind of fun, like coming up with like ways to be creative in practice and figure out different things. But yeah, my goalkeepers are like we're like our own little group over there. We enjoy our time together. So that makes it fun for me.
Absolutely, and again, it's good because then you get to look at the goalkeepers, and that's your speciality. And even over the course of the season, say the team doesn't perform as well or where you'd like it to be, then you can be like, right, the goalkeeper's done this, and look at what I contributed, or look at the success that the goalkeepers had, and it's something that you can take away within itself and just go, right, I actually seen this in the goalkeepers themselves and seen that growth, which is really good to have, and especially when you consider the analysis of the players across the squad. If you can look at a group of your 4 keepers, then that's great within itself. And sometimes it's hard to have that coaching dynamic because you might be a coach going in and suddenly you have to buy into the philosophy, the way that the other head coach delivers, and that can be hard to sort of contribute because you might have sort of ideas in the way that reflects, but sometimes the head coach might take that on board and be like, you are the assistant, and getting that dynamic is right, but it's nice that you have that ongoing dynamic whereby you understand the way you both work and understand what you're able to bring to the team, and how that looks as well.
Yeah, I mean, it's the head coach and I mean, the players will kind of joke, be like, oh, you guys are like a married couple. You bicker and you argue sometimes. And I'm like, yeah, that's part of it, right? Like, my job as an assistant coach is like, yes, the head coach can have this opinion, but I also have to kind of be that like devil's advocate and challenge him a bit. Like, there's been times where he's like, I'm so mad at the players. I'm going to, say this, this, and this. And I'm like, wait a minute, like pause, take a deep breath. That's not going to go well if you do it. Like, and so it's like, it's challenging him a little bit on things, but also knowing like we are so similar and our philosophies align, that like, yeah, I can challenge him, but in the end, the goal is all the same, right? Like we have the same mindset on what we want to accomplish. So yeah, we bicker sometimes. I'll fight him a little bit and push a little bit on some things that maybe I think differently on. Like our opinions are never always the same. But that has been created over 8 seasons. My first season with him, I had played for him in college, and then I became his assistant. But my first season, I didn't say anything really because I was still trying to learn him. Like I didn't say my opinion. I just kind of was like, yeah, yes, sir. Yes, I'll do it. Awesome. Let's go. Second season, I found my voice a little bit. I was like, no, let's try this. And then like, there's things where he listens to me and it all works out. And it's like, you were right. He kind of gets like mad that I was right about it. But again, that's that dynamic we've created. And then we've kind of brought our graduate assistant into it as well. And, last year was his first season with us, but he was kind of the same way I was. Like he spoke up a little, didn't do much. And then now this season, he's like injecting his philosophies and his opinions. And it's like, man, this is making us all better. Our dynamic is even better. We've been in the office this whole week getting ready for preseason, and we're getting things done. We're knocking stuff out. Like it's awesome. And it's like all of us are different people but like we're getting things done and we're accomplishing things. And it's like, it's so cool to watch it and be like, man, like we're on the same page. Like it's cool. But yeah, it definitely takes time to build that with a head coach. But I think as an assistant, you have to have a voice. That's part of your job. Part of your job is to give a little pushback. You can't say yes to everything. You have to challenge a little bit, and that's what helps your team be better, helps your staff be better.
I love that, and there's so many important points within that as well. So, stepping up and knowing that you have to have a voice and should have a voice as an assistant coach, but also being devil's advocate as well, because, you might get a head coach, or you might be in a position, any coach, you might come in and you might be so irate because the standards or expectations haven't been met, and therefore you get naturally wound up. So by you just coming in and going, hang on, let's calm down here, you just bring that extra, and you get to settle the situation. You just get to bring that through. And I had a very good assistant coach, and he would see when I was getting pent up, and he was like, "What's wrong?" And I'm like, "Nothing." He's like, "What's wrong?" And he's like, "I can tell something's wrong because you're starting to gear up." And I'm like, "We're just not meeting the standards which I'm expecting here." And we ended up having a really good dynamic, and he was very good in helping form and speculate in terms of that position and where it's going. And that's the perfect position to sort of have someone to come and just be like, right, how can we address this? So it's nice that you've got that dynamic and where you're going. But on just the flip side of that, and currently, having 8 years together, and that sort of growth and progress from player to transition to coach and where you're at, is it in the back of your mind that relationship might move on at some point and you might go, I want to be the head coach now?
Yeah. It's interesting you say that because it's kind of where I currently am, right? Like I've been an assistant at 2 different schools, and I'm comfortable where I am. Like I know what I will get day in and day out. But as a person that wants to grow in your career, like you want to challenge yourself a little more. And eventually, I want to be my own boss. I want to be the final say, because everyone should want to be that way. But at the same time, it's kind of that I know what I get here, and I'm happy. So it's been on my mind, but again, it's like I have to do a pros and cons because yes, I want to be the boss. I want to run my own program. I want to instill what I've gathered from my current head coach, my boss, but also can I like put my own twist on it and create my own thing. So yeah, eventually that's the goal, right? To be the big guy, the one that sits in the big desk with the chair, but and makes all those decisions. But yeah, it's kind of like I'm content where I am. I work for a great school. I am happy, so it's like, what do I want to move on? It's kind of like a hit and miss. Yes, the goal in life is to be a head coach. I have my master's and my bachelor's degree, and so it's like I have those in sport administration. So one day, do I want to be the athletic director that's in charge of everyone? Do I want to go work for a pro sports team? Those are all things that I just turned 30, so I feel like I also kind of like I'm at that weird point of like, okay, what's next? I've spent 30 years doing all this stuff I love. What's next? Can I challenge myself again? I don't know. It will be interesting. I'm 100% bought into the season and everything going forward right now. But I always do a reflection point at the end of a season. So maybe the reflection point at the end of this is like, hey, let's look at other jobs. I don't know. We'll see. We'll see.
And that's definitely interesting. And when you're asking all those questions, and you're in the position that you're at, where you are very happy and you've got a great program, and as you say, once you've got all those dynamics, it's great to have, and you're able to learn off someone, and someone's nurtured and brought you through and made you their assistant and so on, and you've got that great dynamic, and you also want to know in the back of your head where you're going and what you're doing, and especially as time gets past us as well. It's great that you've got that reflection point. But when it comes into asking all those questions and so much comes into play, it can be really hard to sort of define where you want to go and how you're going to do it. But do you find that hard in terms of the circulation of all the thoughts that you are having? Because it's not as straightforward as going, right, I want to be a head coach, and I want to do this for 30 years. Because you're also thinking, I want to do a bit of this, I might want to go into that, I might want to do that. And then when you've got sort of all these contributions of ideas and where you want to go, sometimes it's hard, because then instead of being a straight line, then you've sort of got this axis going left, right, up, down, and then it's really hard to sort of accumulate our thoughts in a process and lay them out, because you sort of go, right, I want to go this way, but hang on, that's over there. So is it hard for you in that position right now then, with a lot of thoughts going on?
I mean, yeah, but I also know I love coaching, and it's been what I've done for 8 years at the collegiate level, but I also coached high school, and I've also coached club and different things. Like I was that kid when I was 10 years old in my parents' backyard doing like imaginary soccer sessions with literally no one but myself. My neighbors probably watched out their windows like, what is that girl doing? I'd have a whistle and everything. Like, so coaching has always been, my dad was a coach. Like, I've been around it. So it's like, I feel like my one track is like, pretty solid going straight forward into coaching with those random little thoughts. What it's always going to come down to is, am I happy doing what I'm doing? And no moment in what my career is feels like work. Once that kind of changes for me, then maybe that's where I have to look at other things. When coaching becomes something that I don't enjoy, or coaching becomes something where I feel like, oh, I'm going to work, that's when I think in my brain, it's like, look at the other things. So I think down to my core, coaching is what I've wanted to do for so long. And I've been through the ups and downs of getting jobs and different things, and COVID decided to get involved in me getting hired here, and it was just everything. But to the core, I wanted to be a coach. I wanted to coach here. So yeah, I mean, I think the moment I'm not happy and I don't enjoy my job is when I have to question it. So it hasn't happened yet. So hopefully it doesn't happen for a while. I'm young. I want to stay in this. I want to say, hey, I retire as a coach. That'd be cool. But knowing that, hey, I could do other things if I really wanted to.
Absolutely. And I love that summary there in terms of, being able to do other things if you want to, but it'd be great to finish and do this. And it's great because you do have so many opportunities in front of you and you're in a great position now. But as a coach and what you do day to day, and a lot of conversations that I keep having with coaches, and I keep throwing out the word, I teach this and I've taught the players that. So are you a teacher or are you a coach, or do you combine the both? Or is there a very fine line of one which you might maybe avoid?
Yeah, I mean, I think for saying like I coach or I teach, it's like I impact, right? Like I'm impacting someone's life. Like I don't need to teach a college player this, that, and the other. By example, by how I carry myself, I can impact them on a field. I can give them the tools to make this save or play this ball, but they kind of already know that, right? I'm just kind of tweaking it. But like, if I can impact them and say, hey, like, try this, or off the field, by example, I can be like, this is how I handle myself in a situation. And then maybe that impacts them down the line or in that moment. Like, so I like coaching and teaching to me is like, I feel like it's a very forceful concept where like I'm impacting them and I'm kind of laying, here's the foundation, here's what I would do here, but like, can I kind of, influence your life a little bit? So I kind of like that concept of like, I'm impacting your life. I'm helping you through things. Because guess what? They're 18 to 22, 23-year-olds. They're going to do whatever the heck they want. I can only, in reality, I can say, here's the rules, here's what you should do, but they're 18 to 23. They're going to make that decision themselves. But did I impact them enough to like make the best decision? That's hopefully what I do. Because that's why I coach. Like that's why I'm a coach, is to impact people's lives from doing a session with U5s to coaching my college girls. Like, am I impacting their life? Are they gonna say, me being around you has made me a better person, a better player, a better whatever? So yeah, I don't like that. The teaching or that coaching is like aggressive in my head in terms of like what it really is.
I really, really love that, and I just time stamped the mark as you said that, because I think that's such an interesting concept in terms of flipping that on its head, and thinking the way that things could come across in that perspective, that it could be seen as aggressive or might come across as aggressive because I am going to coach you, I am going to teach you this, and it's just sometimes the way that could be posed as well. It gives an alternative way of thinking because that's how we adapt and move the game forward, and it's a great, interesting concept in terms of who you are and what you're doing as a coach as well. Which, in the back of my mind, I'm very conscious to find out who Melissa is and what she has been doing as well, because it has been very recruitment heavier and on the players, but it's also nice to get that touch side of what your thoughts are on the game and what you do with the players. So I completely love that, and I think that is such a thought-provoking sort of element to consider, especially for anyone listening. So I love that you've brought that, and it's definitely got me thinking, and it's something which I'm going to reflect on after. And I love it in terms of how you bring that. And when you say you are recruiting these players and you've got players coming in, and you might have someone who might be very raw to the program, and they might be one of these bronze players you've identified who might be a culture builder and someone who helps bring those bench vibes. But when it comes into it and they are raw, is it difficult, or do you have the expectations then to expect them to have a level of knowledge which they should already have coming into the program?
Yeah, I mean, if you're playing at this high of a level, we wouldn't recruit someone that we don't think could play at this level or be on a team at this level. Obviously, you have to have your, as you refer, your bronze players, your bench people, your lower half. But they also they have to be able to kick a soccer ball. They have to be able to do certain things. So it's interesting because it's like, yeah, you have they should know certain things. But again, you can also help them through it. If they're struggling with certain things, like you as a person in this position, like a coach or whatever, it's like you're helping them through it. But then also their teammates are helping them through it. They're being like those the impact people in that sense. Because it's to the person to my right and left, like they're helping me do something if I'm a player in this program. So yeah, I mean it's interesting. I've gone out and sat on a bench on campus and had a heart to heart with someone who's like, I'm not doing this right. I'm struggling with this, that, and I'm like, okay, try this. Have this mentality. Tweak this in what you're doing, and that might help you. And then it's like you see them do it, and you're like, man, look at that. And it's like, I always joke, and I'll walk up to that person and be like, oh, I told you so. And they're like, I know, give me crap for it. But yeah, it's the people that come into our program, they know what to expect. Again, we're doing that homework on that front end, the work on the front end, and then it doesn't really, it's not too much of a issue as you progress through.
Mm. And that's interesting as well. So say, you got 10 programs, showcase event, you got like 300 players. Do all 300 players have to be met and sort of quoted to have an opportunity? Or, is it if 250 players get selected and 50 don't? Do those go off and just do a different program or choose, say, a different study? Or is it you have to meet the quota for all 300 across all 10 schools, for example?
Yeah, I mean, in the U.S., it's nice. I always, tell kids that are younger, my high school team, there's a place for everyone, whether you know it or not. If you're that 50 that didn't maybe get seen by those 10 programs, there's somewhere for you. Guess what? 10 programs out of hundreds of programs across thousands across all levels, right? There's in the U.S. there's so many opportunities. You have junior colleges, NAIAs, you have all the NCAA 1, 2, and 3. Like, there's so many chances for players, but you have to put yourself out there. So yeah, 1 through 250 got recognized by the 10 schools there, but those bottom 50, like, there's still a place for you. So don't lose hope. And that's with any showcase. We go to these big recruiting events, like tournaments where you're going watching 15 games a day. Maybe that kid that's coming off the bench off of a team, like, there's a place for them somewhere. Maybe that coach isn't here, but it's somewhere. Put yourself out there. If you want it bad enough, you'll find it. Because I have to say no to girls that want to come to Drury. It's like, hey, like, we don't have the opportunity for you here, which is tough because you want girls to succeed. I don't want to crush people's dreams and hopes. That's not. I don't go into work every day and open up my email and be like, deny, like, I'm crushing your dreams. Like, this is fun to me. Like, that's not fun to me, because I was once that kid finding my home. And so that's, you want everyone to have a chance.
I love that, and I think that's really important as well, and how that looks within that. And just something that's considering then, we want to find out how to win a game, and obviously, if you knew how to answer that question, you win every game and you'd be the best coach ever. So without it being too broad then, what ingredients do you think you need that would contribute to you being more successful on a match day and getting a positive outcome towards that win that you believe that you need within that mix?
Yes, I think the biggest thing is that the we over me concept that a lot of people will throw out, right? If I'm individualized on a game day as a coach, as a player, whatever, there's probably not going to be a lot of success. Maybe I score 2 goals, but like the other team might score 3. So it's that we over me concept of, like, as a group, we're going to accomplish this. But then I think it's that putting in that hard work and putting in that effort, right? If I may have average skill as a player, and the other team might be amazing, but if I'm working harder than them, I'd take my success rate any day, right? If my effort and my energy and my work rate, and I have my team around me, and maybe I'm not the most skilled team of the day, and the other team is just better than us, I would put my bet on that team that's going to work hard, that hardworking blue collar type team. That's who I'm going to put my bet on. And so I think, like, and that's something in our program here we pride ourselves on, is like, we're not going to be the best team every day. We're not. Like, we have a very strong conference. We play very good teams, but we're going to outwork you. And at the end of the day, no one's going to say, Drury didn't work hard. Like, we're going to work. And that's kind of what we pride ourselves in, is like, if we have a culture that's already created that we over me concept, and then we have that work rate, we don't do things, halfway, we do it to our full ability, that 100% concept, then I'm taking bets on us every day. Because it's hard to outwork someone sometimes. If you're giving everything, it's going to be a battle if both teams are giving everything, and then that's fun. That's a fun day. So
I love that, and there's so much within that which is really important as well. And we've had such a great discussion. There's been so much within it, and it's been great to find out more about you. And I'm glad that we could make this work and make this happen. And there's been so much more which we could touch upon, and it's great because I hope that we can have more discussions around it. But very conscious of cutting into your time even further, especially around a decent pre-season and what you've got coming up and planning. But it's been great that we've gone down this road without having to plan a conversation or give too much detail away, and suddenly from just initiating a conversation within the first couple of minutes, boom, over an hour later, and we've created such a great episode. And there's so many considerations within this, which I think in the back of my mind, every time you've said something, I thought, what would a coach think, or how can they take this away, and how could they maybe take this into their coaching? And that's the whole point of what I wanted the podcast to be about. So I'm glad that we could make this happen and that you've contributed towards it. But before you go, I'd like to throw some quick fire questions at you, as I do with all coaches.
Okay, I'm ready.
They're not difficult, I promise, and they're not to try and catch you off. But if you had to have someone describe you in 3 words, what 3 words would they be?
Ooh, passionate is a big one. Your standard, like, oh, I'm caring. I have a big heart, so caring would be a big one. I say passionate, caring. I'm gonna work hard. I think those are my three, because you're not gonna. I'm a firm believer in I'm gonna do everything possible and I'm gonna work hard, and that's what I instill in my players. So yeah, passion, caring, hard work.
Love that, brilliant. If you could move to any country to coach, where would it be?
Man, I would probably have to say right now, and I think it's just I'm biased because the World Cup's going on. Australia, man, I would go there in a heartbeat. I have like former teammates that live there or from there, and it's a cool place. I think, yeah, and soccer's growing there, which is awesome to see. I mean, soccer's growing everywhere for the women's game right now. But yeah, Australia for sure.
I got a very close friend who's leaving in maybe 4 days' time to go out for 6 months, possibly a year. And I was talking to my best friend yesterday. I said I'd love to go to Australia at some point just to experience it, whether it be 3 months, 6 months. And I was like, mate, you should come with me. We should do this. And he had absolutely zero interest. I'm like, mate, why not? And he's got the most surfer look about him as well. He would pitch in. I was like, mate, you talk about hot weather, you talk about relaxing. Australia would be the perfect thing, but he wasn't having any of it. And I couldn't understand it. And I was just like, whatever. Then I had to move the conversation on.
Yeah, well, I would struggle with like the bugs and spiders and stuff over there. Like those don't scare me here, but over there they're like a whole different world. And I'm sure it's hot, but I'm like, man, to be around a beach all the time, around soccer all the time, like I could do it. And the culture from like Australia to the U.S. isn't too much of a difference. It'd be kind of going England to U.S. I couldn't go over to like a China. That would be a culture shock to me. I would struggle probably through it, and I'm a very picky eater, so that would be I don't know if I could do that one, but yeah, man. If anyone wants to pay for my plane ticket to go to Australia, I would take it in a heartbeat. That's for sure.
You never know where this podcast could take you or who's listening. If you could spend a day with any coach or manager, who would it be?
That's an interesting one. I'd probably have to pick Anson Dorrance from North Carolina, just because of like what he's created on the women's side, right? The competitive culture he's created, the buy-in type philosophy, the blue collar hard work, we're gonna run you into the ground type concept is all kind of things like I feel like I have as a coach. So that would be a fun one. And man, he's won a lot of championships, so that would be a fun one.
Great choice, great choice. And this might be the same answer for the next one, but it might be entirely different. Who was or is your role model?
Soccer-wise?
Yep.
Okay. Yeah, I would say probably like in general, like North Carolina women's soccer, like Anson Dorrance, all that. To me, that's like one big thing. But I also grew up less than a mile from the University of Notre Dame. And they're a good soccer program too. I mean, Randy Waldrum, who's the Nigerian coach right now, like that's where I grew up watching on the sidelines coaching Notre Dame. So I mean, I think it's kind of like both of those. It's, I joke and say like I am a women's soccer junkie. Like I could tell you the most random facts about North Carolina, about Notre Dame, about women's pro teams. Like that's just, I enjoy that stuff. That's what I do in my free time is watch those and dissect those programs. So yeah, I'd probably say both of those are kind of my soccer role models, like in terms, it's not a person, but I guess a program. But what Randy's doing now with Nigeria is insane. So yeah, those are probably the two.
I love that, and it's great about Randy as well, and someone who will be appearing on after the World Cup finishes. So I think that's going to be a great conversation. But it's great that because even in the one that you mentioned before, that's a name that's come up as well. So to have these consistent names just shows how great the game is, where you're at, and where it's going. And who knows in the future when someone pitches your name out there because of all the great work you're doing. So keep doing what you're doing. But if you could go back to a younger self, and I'm pitching in front of you with all the knowledge you have now, and I said, right, you've got two cards. Card A is to be a professional football player or soccer player, or B is to be a professional coach. You can go and do whatever you want for however long you want. Which one would you choose with the knowledge that you have today?
And I mentioned I would probably do the coach one, because I mentioned, like, when I was younger, I was that kid in the backyard with a whistle, yelling at cones, essentially. My parents always told me I was going to be that coach. And with coaching, like, I'm around the sport I love. I've played this sport since I was 4. So I think the coach part keeps me within the game. I get to, be around it. I get to go knock a ball around all the time at practice, so it's almost like I'm playing a little bit. My body appreciates the fact that I'm not playing anymore, because as a goalkeeper, that would have been interesting. So yeah, I would have picked the coaching route, because that's been what I feel like it's like just what I've seen and what I've been around. I watched my dad have a 25-year coaching career. My uncle coached for over 30 years in this sport. So that's kind of what I saw. I witnessed that. And so then that was kind of that drive, that focus of what I wanted to do. Because in college, I even knew that's what I want to do. So I got a sport management degree because I was like, I can be a coach with that, and like still get my degree. So that's kind of my one track mind I've had for a while.
Love that. If you had the choice of taking any job out there in the world, what job would it be in terms of coaching?
In coaching, yeah. It's always a goal to want to keep rising in your career, right? So a Division I job would be awesome. A big Division I school that has all the resources in the world. You don't gear up the wazoo, like all those things would be great, because I've experienced it where players have to buy their gear, this and that, like you have to share a field with 3 other teams. Like, so yeah, that job would be like amazing, great. In today's, this last week, it's like, man, I think I could do a better job as a U.S. national team coach. But it's also like, that's the pressure of a job I do not want. So that's always like the dream. Like, yeah, you want to be the best of the best in your profession. And the best of the best in the women's game is like a national team coach or a professional coach in the NWSL or whatnot. Realistically, like, I'm going to keep making those little steps, but you never know.
So again, you said you don't want a 9-to-5 job, but if you weren't coaching or involved in sport, and that door was closed, what would you be doing?
I'd probably try to go like a front office job at like a pro team or something. Still be involved in the game, because that would be fun. I mean, like, man, to go watch a soccer game, and have a season like a coach, or something in athletics, something in sports, whether that's, I love basketball. I love, all these different sports. My dad played college baseball. Like, so I've thrived on sports, so it'd have to be something in the sporting world. Soccer would be preferred, just because that's what I've known my whole life. But again, I would do anything in the realm of sports, preferably, women's sports, because I think it's insanely growing. You look at the women's professional, soccer league here, you look at the women's basketball, the WNBA, you look at these different women, and of course, as a female, like, I want to grow that. You want to grow the coverage for sports on the female side. So I'd probably try to stay in that women's, realm of things, just to kind of progress that even more. I've seen where, soccer games were not televised, when I was younger. I didn't have the luxury of watching a women's pro game on TV unless it was the U.S. national team. And now I can go pull up any NWSL game and watch it, which is cool. I didn't have that as a kid. So this generation now is lucky they have that, and I want to keep that growing. So,
and it sounds great, and who knows what might happen, but the contributions that you're having to the game is fantastic, and it'd be great to see that continue thrive and go forward. Who is your all-time favorite player then?
Oh, goalkeeper wise, I would have to say like a Hope Solo, because that's who I grew up watching. Um, Field player wise, I'm a big Tobin Heath fan. My dog is named after her. I'm a big Tobin Heath fan. I just think like her creative style, her dynamics of a player, like she's a very chill, relaxed player, but she's gonna meg you, she's gonna take you on, she's gonna make you look like a fool and go score a goal. So I'm a big Tobin Heath fan, but goalkeeper wise, because that's what I played with, was Hope Sola. I mean, she's one of the best of the best. Yeah, but I always say again, I'm that women's soccer junkie. I could probably tell you random facts about every player, that's current on the roster, that was playing on all these different rosters, on all these pro teams. Like that's just I'm like a random women's soccer fact thing. So if you need a random fact, it's like I could throw it at you. So.
I love that, and great choices as well. But you'd be great on a quiz show. Who knows what might be up and coming? What is your biggest pet peeve as a soccer coach? Then
Biggest pet peeve, and this goes back to just like my core belief of like working hard. It's like if a player does something with half effort, in my mind, it's like why even do it? You know what? If you're not going to do it with everything you have, what's the point of doing it? So I think that's probably my biggest like pet peeve. Yeah, that would probably be it.
Love that. What is your favorite thing to do in your downtime?
What do I do in my downtime? Oh man, I have a dog, so him and I will go on like little hikes and stuff here in town. Or he's a lab mastiff, so he's a monster. He's 120 pounds, so he's a big guy. So I hang out with him a lot. But for me, I like watching like Hulu, Netflix. It's always nice to have like a show so I can just sit there and watch and kind of chill, because my job is very go, 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 especially in the fall. And so being able to just like turn on a TV and just like not do anything sometimes is nice. But I coach, I do, different coaching stuff. So I'm like still kind of working, I guess. But yeah, I'm a big just like hang out at home with my dog, watch a show. So.
Love that. What are your 3 non-negotiables?
In life or in coaching, just in general?
It could be general, could be one or the other. Up to you. I don't mind.
Yeah. So, and it kind of goes into like coaching. It's like give effort. Like effort is biggest thing. Give like compassion and care. Like be a good person. That's a big one. And it's like find something you're passionate about. Like care about something, whether it's a video game, a sport, or anything. It's like if you have the effort, you are compassionate and a good person, and you care about something, like you can be happy. So
love that. What does reflection mean to you?
Oh, reflection. I mean, it's like who you are, your why, right? Your why am I doing this? Why am I the way I am? Why am I and we talked about this, a lot in this podcast. It's that looking back and saying like why, and kind of almost like challenging what you are and who you are, and kind of like almost being like a devil's advocate to it. It's like, could I be better at this? What if I did this different? That's that reflection point.
Love that. Brilliant. If you had to recommend one book, what book would it be?
Man, I'm a big book person. Soccer wise, I would probably recommend it's The Man Watching by Anson Dorrance. It's about Anson Dorrance. Because that's just like and again, he's like one of my role models, so that helps. But that's a good one to just kind of see like how it happened. Right now, I'm singing Where the Crawdads Sing, which is like a solid book. I own like over 150 books and movies and all that. So I think my like book choice changes a lot, but because I'm reading that one, that's probably what I would recommend.
Good choices. And to wrap up, what has been such a fantastic time speaking to you? What is one thing you enjoy most about coaching?
The impact I can make. and hopefully for every person I coach, it's positive, because that's what I want. And I think that's the biggest thing, is the impact I can make on someone. That's why I coach. That's why that's why I live the way I live, and everything. It's can I impact the person on the street? Can I impact the person I'm coaching? Can I impact, through this podcast, who can I impact? If I can impact one person, I've done my job.
Love that, and that wraps up what has been such a wonderful conversation with you. And I really appreciate you getting this organised, and it's great that to have had you on, and to really delve into what you're doing and where you're at, where you're going to go, and hopefully you'll have a good season ahead. But I'm so glad that we could make this work and make it happen. And I appreciate how long you've gone on for and the time that you've committed. So a big thank you from me, and glad that it could happen.
Yeah, no, I appreciate it. Thanks for being flexible with my schedule.
No problems, anytime.
Yeah, I appreciate it.
That's right, no worries at all. But I hope you take care, and I hope you have a great rest of the day, and I'll touch base with you soon.
Awesome, thank you. Have a good one.
No worries, thank you, bye.
When we bring a kid in, we never promise playing time. That's not how we roll. You could be an All-American in high school. You could be an All-American club player. You could be player of the year, yada, yada. But I'm not going to promise you playing time, because what if you come here and do nothing? You don't work. You're not a good culture kid. I can't put you on the field. And so that's kind of our philosophy, is you have every opportunity to earn that playing time. You have every opportunity to show that you should be on the field. But you have to earn it. That's kind of how that helps also take a little bit of that, like, pulling at your heartstring type thing, those different situations. It makes it a little easier, because if that player's not working hard, then there's my answer. So, I mean, my philosophy is you don't do anything halfway. You do it with 100% effort. So that's a big one for me, for sure.